Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to part number 12 of the Unsung Heroes of the 2026 Super Motocross World Championship season, round 12 of 17 in the Monster Energy AMA Supercross portion of the calendar, recently wrapped up from the Dome in America's Center, St. Louis, Missouri. It was another ruddy, chewed up, challenging, tricky technical racetrack. You could use so many adjectives to describe the course that was out there on Saturday night. Plus, it was the second East West Showdown round of the season and the annual St. Jude's Love Moto Stop Cancer round. So many great gear sets, graphic kits that will be up for grabs in the St. Jude's auctions in the coming weeks. And of course, if you want to see some of the best graphic kits from privateer organizations and riders, go ahead and feel free to check out the written versions of my articles. I will have galleries on treystire.wordpress.com as a part of each class's Unsung Heroes articles. But welcome into the audio edition. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the show, follow the show, give us likes, give us good reviews, spread the word. We appreciate all of your support, and we'll go ahead and get into things right away. What do you say we start out with an interview on this week's show? We are kicking things off on the Unsung Heroes this week from St. Louis with our weekly interview segment. Joining the show, he has appeared several times in interviews in the past in the written version. Now that we have the audio edition, he is joining us once again, racing as a privateer primarily in the 250 East division, but also some in the 450 class. And on Saturday night with the East-West Showdown, he hopped up to the 450 class, finished 20th in the main event after qualifying, backed by Valley Automotive Group aboard a Honda. Please welcome Jeremy Hand back to the Unsung Heroes. Congrats on making that 450 main event. What's up, man? How are we doing today?
What's up? Yeah, thank you. It was a good weekend in St. Louis.
We'll go ahead and get right into things. Of course, as I mentioned, you've been a 250 East regular this year, but you've hopped up for the showdowns. Talk a little bit about the weekend in St. Louis. Very tricky track conditions throughout the night. Take me through your day overall. Of course, you put together a great ride in the LCQ to get into the main event. But how are we feeling and how are the vibes after making that 450 main event this weekend?
Yeah, it was definitely a really gnarly track from the first practice all the way to the last lap of the main, but felt pretty good. Missed it by one at the Birmingham round in the 450 class, so I knew I could be right there. Just needed to execute the start and yeah, ride my own race, and that's what we ended up doing.
We talked a little bit a few minutes ago. You've been riding the 450 during the week some, and of course, you're a regular 450 outdoor guy. But now with the East class having some of these showdown rounds, you're hopping a little bit back and forth in between, at least in terms of the racing. So for you, the last couple of weeks, what has been the biggest challenge when you're hopping back and forth between the 450 and 250? Not only different levels of power and different feels of the bike, but also different levels of competition between each class.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little difficult switching back and forth, but usually it doesn't take much but a few laps to get used to one bike or the other. So usually I practice on the 450, so I have a pretty good feeling on that. And yeah, just this year I just decided to switch it up and race some 250 East too.
This year so far in the 250 East division, you've been pretty solid. You've been hovering right around that top 15 range, which I feel like is your usual area. There's been some other guys right up in there and a lot of talented privateers in the 250 East division, but you have some of these teams out there. Of course, you got like the Club MX guys, the Phoenix Racing Honda, even folks like MX6 Racing, Storm Lake, PRMX, so many established or growing privateer level teams, and you're of course doing things out on your own. You got your own sponsorship, own support, driving to the races in a van, and you're still competing with not only these privateer level organizations, but of course making the main events and sometimes mixing it up with some of the factory boys. Talk about, and of course we've talked about this before somewhat, about your own organization, but talk about continuing to develop your own effort and sticking with Honda because I know you've been a Honda guy for pretty much your entire career. but detail some of those things because while some of those guys are out there pitting underneath semis and going and not having to worry about a ton of stuff, you're still very competitive with all of those guys while putting your own program and ride together.
Yeah, for sure. It's difficult sometimes, but I have a awesome group of people that support me. It's just me and my dad that drive to every race and out of the van every weekend, working on bikes, doing it all. So, yeah, it definitely wouldn't be possible without all the people that help me out during the week and get me to the races like Valley Automotive Group. They've are stepped up huge the last couple of years, and they really just make it all happen for me.
Going into this weekend, we're finally going to have another stretch of East Coast standalone races. We have a standard normal race weekend again in Nashville this weekend, albeit a little bit earlier, a matinee race during the afternoon on Saturday. Everybody can watch it on NBC or Peacock, of course. Then we have a Triple Crown coming up at Cleveland, and I know you're very excited about that race as an Ohio boy. Then we move on to Philly, another standalone traditional format for the East Coast guys. These next three races, you're really getting back into the swing of things of just having to worry about that 250 class. What are you really looking for in these next couple rounds? And also, the second part of that question, as I mentioned, you are from the state of Ohio, so how awesome is it going to be for you to be racing in the Cleveland Browns Stadium, Huntington Bank Field, racing in front of an Ohio crowd? Because the state of Ohio has not had an SMX race in their state lines since the 2004 season, and now with the Cleveland Supercross and the Columbus playoff event, two races in 1 year, pretty cool for the Buckeye State.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be awesome to have it in Cleveland. I only live about 30 minutes from there, so I'll have all my family and friends, and then also Valley Automotive Group is out of Cleveland, Ohio, so it'd be awesome to have all them there and just all my friends and stuff. But for these next three races, I really want to try to get closer to that top 10. I know if I can execute the main event and get a good gate pick out of the heat race, I think I can do it. I have a really good bike this year, so probably the best bike I've had in the 250 class. And yeah, I just got to execute the main event.
That's an interesting point. You talk about this year's Honda being a little bit better, and as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, you've been a Honda guy pretty much your entire career, so you know the ins and outs of the Red brand. But from your perspective, what is it about the 2026 model that makes the bike so unique and so much better than some of the previous models? What have they really improved on in your eyes this year to make it perhaps the ultimate 250 machine that you've ever competed on?
Yeah, so the new bike's definitely a lot better. The frame and the feeling and all that. I also switched up a few things this year. Have different suspension company that's working out awesome, Art of War. And then also with the help of the Valley Automotive guys and TDR Motorsports, which is another local guy that I'm working with here in Ohio that are doing my motors on my bike. I feel like we have a pretty competitive bike this year. So, yeah, I mean, really no excuses. Should be getting closer to that top 10 if I can execute.
You talk about, of course, getting closer to that top 10, and as I said, so many guys right around that range. When you go to these races every weekend, and of course, you've hopped up to the 450 class a couple times, but on these other standalone East rounds, it seems like everybody after the first couple rounds really finds their footing and settles into a range that they'll probably be in or around the rest of the season. Has there been anyone at those first couple rounds that you're just riding around, it seems like constantly, whether it's in a heat race or main event, where you're just like, oh man, I got to race this guy again?
Uh, Not really that I can think of, but yeah, it's a lot of the same guys as always. You got the Phoenix guys, the PRMX guys, and all them. And yeah, I mean, I only rode the 250 once before I raced it for the first East round, so I didn't really have too much time, kind of a last minute decision. So I was pretty happy with how it's going so far, getting feeling better on it and getting more used to it.
There are so many different phases of riders' careers when they're privateers. You are an established guy. You've been racing for almost a decade now, making main events regularly, scoring points in the Pro Motocross season regularly. You've appeared at some of the SMX playoff rounds as a wild card. And of course, there are also several other riders who are just in the early stages of their career, trying to make a name for themselves, trying to qualify and set the bar for later in their career. If any of your fellow racers or younger racers are listening, what advice would you give some of these younger athletes who are starting out and trying to build their privateer program? Because obviously, while looking at your program, you might not have that huge setup like some of these other teams have, but you are steadily chipping away, scoring points every single year, and you're always right up there in the mix for top 15s and sometimes top 10s.
Yeah, it's really just about trying to be consistent. That's what I've always tried to do, and just make the main event, do the best you can, and really not try to set the world on fire in qualifying or any of that, because the race is what matters. So try to make the most of that and just, yeah, try to be consistent.
Of course, St. Louis, as I mentioned, and several other racers I've heard talking about it. The conditions this weekend, a little bit softer than usual soil in St. Louis. We heard that it could be a mixture of some of the stuff we saw in Detroit a couple weeks ago, plus Indianapolis has that standard really soft dirt that often breaks down. From your perspective, what was the dirt conditions like? You talked about the track being very gnarly and breaking down, but where did that dirt end up, and were you a little bit surprised after having some previous starts in St. Louis at how things broke down and got chewed up?
Yeah, it was quite surprising from the first lap of practice, especially since I was in 450B practice. But nonetheless, usually St. Louis has some of the best dirt. It gets a little bit ruddy, but nothing too extreme. But wow, this weekend was brutal. Honestly think it was probably the worst racetrack rut wise, even compared to Indy and some of those other places.
You talked about dialing in your suspension this year, getting more comfortable on the 250. That 3 round stretch coming up, whether it's bike setup wise, something technique wise, what do you think is the biggest key to getting up closer to that top 10 range? Is it something in terms of continuing to dial the bike in, something fitness wise, start wise maybe? What do you think can help you get closer to the front and really in that mix of guys who are racing for the top 10 spots every single weekend?
It's definitely going to be getting a good start in the main event, which before, like leading up to that, you have to have a good heat race to be able to get that good gate pick, to be able to get that good start. So really just trying to execute the heat race and get a good gate pick for the main.
This has been Jeremy Hand on this week's edition of the Unsung Heroes. Following his 450 appearance in St. Louis, of course, he'll be back in the 250 East Division. Before we conclude, go ahead and shout out some of your sponsors. I know you've already mentioned quite a few that have helped you get to the track this weekend. Show some love to those people who are helping you get to the track each and every weekend and keep competing for points.
Yeah, huge shout out to Motorsports, Valley Automotive Group, Mickey Mart, Dean Hushin Insulation, O'Neill, 6D, X Brand Goggles, Wiseco, MotorX, all the people that helped me get to these races and make this happen.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy Hand, keep an eye out for him the rest of the season. I'm sure we're going to be seeing him both on the 250 and the 450. I'm sure he'll be at plenty of the Nationals. Go say hello to Jeremy if you attend any of the races the rest of the year. Thanks for the time, man, and best of luck this weekend and throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you once again to Jeremy Hand for his time as the interview segment this week on the Unsung Heroes. Look out for Jeremy throughout the rest of the year, whether he's in the 250 East Supercross class or the 450 division running some Supercross races and outdoors. Keep an eye on the Valley Motorsports Honda Rider number 87 coming to a town near you. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get in to the meat and potatoes of today's episode. Starting with the 250 division, the second East-West showdown in the last 3 weeks. More challenges for those 250 privateers and 250 riders, but plenty of privateer faces in the main event. And of course, no surprise, guess who's leading the way? It was the Club MX Yamaha team, and it was actually Devin Simonson out front for the organization this week, overcoming his bad weekend or bad ending in Detroit. But Devin Simonson, P8, a strong result in the showdown for the number 89. He would have been fifth in the 250 East Division, so very competitive for Devin. And it was a great weekend even before it got started because the Club MX team announced that Devin is signed through the conclusion of the 2027 season. He, of course, was on a Supercross only deal last year and to start this season as well. So a little bit of future security for Devin, and he has really been gelling with the Club MX team. Of course, he's been on a couple of other organizations and showed promises, but definitely by far the most success and most consistency we've ever seen from Devin Simonson since he went full-time with that Club MX organization. Congrats to Devin on the extension. Just behind him, 10th place and 11th place, his teammates Maximus Voland in 10th, Cody Schock in 11th. Of course, the usual flag bearers of the team. Max, another strong heat race, P2, past Lux Turner for the position. A little bit off of his usual range in the main event, but of course, very competitive field. Some other factory racers stepping up from some of their previous forms this year, but he kept his 8-race top 10 streak alive. Top 10 every single round this season so far for the second generation racer. Then for Cody Schock, he went down in the second corner, but progressed 11 spots through the race, 22nd to 11th. A pretty solid charge for Cody there. And now, with the East Coast back as a standalone class this weekend in Nashville, maybe Cody can get up there and maybe get a little bit of redemption from Detroit and secure his second career 250 Supercross podium finish. A few spots back, the fourth member of the team, all four bikes from Club MX in the top 15. You have Hunter Yoder, the number 60. He lost a couple spots late and fell short of finishing with his teammates, but another start for Yoder. He's putting together perhaps the best season of his career and proving why the Club MX team believed in him. And of course, that organization just continues every single week to be the benchmark for the non-factory organizations. No surprise that they were up front and putting in solid results once again at St. Louis. In between Schock and Yoder, 12th and 13th position, another organization that's been gaining a lot of momentum, the MX6 Racing Kawasaki team, fresh off of a double top 10 with Henry Miller in 5th and Derek Kelly in 9th in Detroit. Both of those riders were back in the main event. Unfortunately, Marshall Welton was a DNQ, but for Henry Miller, 12th, Derek Kelly, 13th, both men right there together once again, and progress as well. Since the last time there was a showdown round, only Henry Miller made the field in the main event. Derek Kelly failed to transfer out of the LCQ, so now two bikes in the main event and both in the top 15. Solid night of building and continued growth for the MX6 crew. A little bit deeper in the pack, we find another Kawasaki rider finishing 17th overall on the Grindstone Friesen Group Kawasaki, the California native. Josh Varese back there holding it down. He continues to qualify for every single main event, continues also to hold 10th place in the point standings on the West. And of course, if you remember back from earlier in the season, he was a late addition to the program after Dylan Walsh went back closer to home toward Australia. He will be racing for KTM Australia, the factory organization down there. Of course, the Kiwi/Brit dual citizenship for Dylan. But Josh Varese, he's been solid, he's been steady. Seems like the story of his career. He has been a steady privateer more often than not during his time in the professional ranks, and another good season unfolding for Josh. Couple spots behind him, you have more West Coast regulars. You have Parker Ross in 18th, Lux Turner 19th for the Toyota Redlands Bar X Yamaha team. I wouldn't have been surprised to see 3 Bar X bikes in the main event, but unfortunately, Dylan Schwartz went down pretty hard in qualifying a couple weeks after he returned from a big practice crash in Houston. Now Schwartz down again. Not sure about his status, but hopefully we will see Dylan back in action soon. Parker Ross got a little bit of redemption, still not the result that he wanted. Of course, he missed the first Showdown main event in Birmingham, so progress nonetheless, but 18th. I know Parker is capable of more than that, and he said he just wasn't riding like himself, and he should be better. Next time out in Denver, Lux Turner, a couple crashes really ruined his main event. He was looking good early in that heat race. He talked about to the broadcast team, the Peacock crew, that he was a little embarrassed sometimes getting tired and he needs to be better. And I'm sure Lux, who's still getting back to 100%, and I think he's almost there, but he should be ready to roll and back better in Denver. The last 3 finishers in the 250 West and East main event, the Showdown, failed to make the main in Birmingham, but they got a bit of redemption. They put her back in the show. 20th place, Luke Clout, and I was surprised to learn that this was Luke's first ever Showdown start. He missed things in Birmingham, and in 2020, his only previous other Showdown attempt when he was full-time for the Pinwright, now Quadlock Honda team, Luke was a DNS, I believe, in the LCQ, so he wasn't even able to fight for a transfer spot. But Luke was in the main event, and he was there in 20th position, the number 101, putting Australia in the 250 class. And then just behind him, Brandon Ray, the number 388, Ray Lintless Racing, his own triumph effort back in the main event for the first time since Anaheim won. A great performance from B Ray to get it in the Showdown main, his first career Showdown start. And of course, he's on his own. And now we have Brandon back in the main event. Solid ride from the number 388. Is only 21st, but qualifying for a Showdown, absolutely huge for Brandon. Big confidence builder. He put together a great LCQ to qualify. Then in 22nd, unfortunately, didn't gain a point, but Kyle Peters was back in the field his second week for that Partzilla Rocket Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki team. Unfortunately, no points, but Kyle was in the main event. He didn't qualify for the night show in Birmingham, so another big step forward despite not scoring anything. But Kyle Peters was back in a Showdown main event for the first time in a few years. In St. Louis, now for a couple quick notes for some riders outside of the 250 main event. Marcus Phelps, once again, another hole shot in the LCQ. Lost a couple spots late for more experienced riders. Wasn't able to transfer through to the main event, but he's getting closer. And I think with another standalone East round coming up, his starting ability really starting to come into fruition. Marcus should be able to get a main event start here soon in the next couple weeks. Of course, standard format this weekend coming up in Nashville. Shout out to Grindstone Freezing Group Kawasaki's Revan Gordon. Wasn't quite able to make the main event, but a great qualifying effort. He was 9th overall in the 250 West division. Ended up missing the main by a few spots, but a great sign of progress in qualifying for the number 425. And another West Coast racer, Aiden Shive. He's been doing things with the help of his Uncle Donnie, with the help of the HBI racing crew. Unfortunately, Uncle Donnie was in the hospital for a little bit. Some injuries for him, speedy recovery to Donnie, and that left Aiden without a plan really for the round in St. Louis and possibly the last few rounds. But the Gizmo Racing Yamaha team stepped up, and Aiden will be competing with that organization for the rest of Supercross. He's been on a KTM the last couple years, Kawasaki before that, so a completely new bike for him to learn. Very little time on it before St. Louis, but hopefully Aiden is able to shake down the Yamaha a little more and get more comfortable before Denver and Salt Lake City. Now moving into the 450 class, and similar to the 250 class, one organization has really been the top of the list in the privateer ranks throughout the season. Of course, Quadlock Honda being the team in the 450 class. Joey Savacci led the way once again, 7th place finish in his second race back from a foot injury, and he was starting to reel in Eli Tomac late, was able to chew up a bunch of time and cut down the gap significantly before the checkered flag was displayed. Christian Craig finishing 11th just outside of the top 10. Small crash halfway through the main event, but ended up getting the few spots that he lost back and finishing P11. And right behind him was his teammate, Shane McElrath, bike number 12 in spot number 12. Shane plus 7 spots early in the race and then settled in for a 12th place run. In 14th, another one of the regulars, another former 250 class great, Justin Hill on the Monster Energy Team Tedder KTM. He was right there, getting close to the top 10. I think actually broke into the top 10 until he went down in one of the large rhythm lanes, dropped back to 14th after the crash. Wasn't able to make any spots back up, but thankfully he's healthy. He'll be ready to go this weekend in Nissan Stadium. Just behind him, 12 for 12. He continues every week. We talk about him. Money Mitchell Harrison on the Partzilla Rocket Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki. Third consecutive 15th place finish for Mitchell Harrison. He's now moved up to 18th in the point standings. One of the Kawasaki riders representing the green brand there. And a spot behind him, 7 for 12 this season. After missing the cut in Detroit, Grant Harlan was back in the main event aboard his KMR Champion Tool Storage KTM, a white and purple look this weekend for the KMR boys to help celebrate that Love Moto Stop Cancer round. And Nashville has been pretty good for Grant in the past. 2 previous starts there in his 2 previous attempts, so maybe he can keep the ball rolling, log another start this weekend. 18th place, speaking of being on a roll, 5 straight main events now for the Canadian Cole Thompson aboard the Heartbeat Hot Sauce Nano Extreme Yamaha powered by Ty Lube machine. He's doing things on his own. Of course, the Team Solitaire organization based on the West Coast, but Cole is doing things on his own effort, even though he's on a Team Solitaire bike, and putting him in the main event. Got his first career 450 LCQ win on Saturday night. Got a little bit of TV time for that. 18th position in the main event. Just behind him, the other member of the KMR Champion Tool Storage KTM crew, Kevin Moran's the team owner slash rider. And although it was only a 19th in the main event, it was a big week for Kevin. He announced that he will be appearing as a contestant on season 2 of the Netflix show Million Dollar Secret. It's reality mixed with a game show where one of the contestants is awarded a box with $1 million inside of it at the start of the season, and the show progresses as the other contestants attempt to figure out who is in possession of that $1 million. They're trying to figure out who's holding that money. Whoever the last person standing is, whether they are the ones that started with the box or not, are awarded the $1 million. Cool to see Kevin getting some promotion in there with the Netflix show, and hopefully maybe some fans will find out about the sport, and maybe there can be some new moto fans thanks to this $1 million secret show. 20th place, we talked to him a little bit earlier, of course, Jeremy Hand on the Valley Motorsports Honda, stepping up from the 250 East division. He put her inside the main event. Solid ride for Jeremy, and now he'll be back in the 250 East division in Nashville this weekend. Then 21st, the final privateer in the order at his home race, Vince Freezy aboard the ISRT Kawasaki. A bit of a rough night, went down during the main event, almost had disaster in the LCQ. He was leading, then went off track, rejoined, but thankfully for Vince, he was able to climb back into a transfer spot after Tristan Lane went down, and still continues to be 12 for 12 this season. Some notes from just outside of things. The McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program. So close to the main event. Tristan Lane was in a transfer spot for most of the LCQ. Unfortunately, he went down late and out of a transfer position. And the first 3 riders that missed the cut were all McGinley Clinic riders. Zach Williams, for the 3rd time this season, 1 spot shy of his first career 450 main event. And then behind him, Jared Lesher was back on the 2-stroke, the Yamaha YZ250. That always gets the crowd pumped up. And Lesher had a great battle with his teammate Scott Meshy, albeit a little bit behind those transfer spots. Joan Cross was back this weekend as well, the Spanish rider, getting some support from Team Faith back aboard a Yamaha as he was last season. But Cross was back in the LCQ. Not a bad showing for his first race back as well, 10th in the LCQ. And of course, don't forget to check out the written versions of the articles this week to find some of the best graphic kits and gear in the Love Moto Stop Cancer round. Be sure to visit supercrosslive.com/St. Jude for more to donate, to pay attention to the auction. Keep an eye out for all of that. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode of the Unsung Heroes, number 12 of the season after round 12 in St. Louis. Still have a lot more Supercross to go, 5 more rounds. Nashville this weekend, a standalone standard format round, albeit in the afternoon, a matinee race, 3 p.m. here on the East Coast. Thank you once again to Jeremy Hand for his contribution and interview on this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow the Stire Sound on all of its platforms. Subscribe, follow, give us good reviews, hit the bell for notifications, all of those fun things. But thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great week. Hope you enjoyed your Easter weekend, and we'll be back after Nashville. Thanks, everybody.